From the headquarters of Talicia English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Stainy Gray. A day after UN scientists warned of climate chaos if the world doesn't rapidly cut emissions, Hurricane Michael has been battering Cuba and Central America. The storm has just been upgraded to a Category 2 hurricane. Michael brought heavy rains and winds of up to 120 kilometers per hour to western Cuba and eastern Mexico. The forecast says it could become a life-threatening Category 3 hurricane when it strikes Florida by Tuesday night. The National Hurricane Center in Miami has warned people in the Florida Gulf to prepare for damaging winds and flash floods.
Taking into account the evolution of this hurricane, Michael, the cyclone alert phase is established for the province of Pinar del Río and the special municipality of the Isla de la Juventud. The rest of the provinces, Artemisa, Habana, Mayabeque, and Matanzas, continue under an informative phase.
Heavy rains brought by Michael have also battled Central American countries, killing at least 12 people. 4 people are reported to have died in Nicaragua, some of them as they tried to cross rivers swollen by the rains. 6,600 people have been forced to leave their homes. Others have been stuck indoors without food and drinking water after a major river burst its banks. Doctors fear outbreaks of disease from contaminated water.
The water has reached up to our chest. Inside it has gotten up to the knee and here to the chest. It has reached the patio and inside the drinking water tank. The main thing is that we do not have water now and we have to go far away to find water.
We had enough turkey, chickens, guinea that was all lost because they sleep on a pool and size that got crippled from the water. They fell and were washed away in the water. They starved for the 3 days and died.
The torrential rains caused a mudslide in Honduras which killed 2 children and their mother. The rain destroyed houses and forced thousands to leave their homes. According to local authorities, 6 people were killed in Honduras and 7,000 were forced to evacuate. In El Salvador, the floods have killed 3 people and caused more than 700 to evacuate. 1 person died in a landslide in the eastern department of Morazan. 2 others were killed by falling trees. The Director of Civil Protection said the bad weather was likely to continue until Wednesday. In Guatemala, heavy rainfall has affected 8 departments, caused the overflow of rivers, and at least 1 disappearance. The National Coordinator for Disaster Relief has called on citizens to be alert and to take precautions. Authorities said that a low-pressure system located in the Atlantic Ocean has strengthened, and rain was expected to increase in the coming day. Rescue units continue to search for an 11-year-old child who was swept away by the Petacalpa River in San Marcos. Limiting the level of global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is crucial to sustaining humankind and the world ecosystem. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization at a press briefing on Monday. The Secretary General said that reducing the scale of climate change should be a key priority around the world. He said a series of catastrophic events that would destroy the ecological environment if temperatures rose by up to 2 degrees Celsius could be avoided if global warming was limited to 1.5 degrees.
So what is the difference between 1.5 degree and 2 degree? And one of the major issues is that there would be 420 million people less suffering because of climate change if we would be able to limit the warming to 1.5 degree level. And we have certain areas in the world which are extremely sensitive. It's the small island states, Mediterranean region, and also sub-Saharan Africa, which are already suffering and will suffer the most in the future. There are also positive signs in the world. So, for example, China, which is still the biggest emitter, they have been investing the most worldwide to renewable energy. And they see this transition as a business opportunity. For example, the solar technology that is sold in the world.
Monday saw residents of Haiti trying to get back into their daily routines after Saturday's deadly 5.9 magnitude earthquake struck the country. Buildings on the northwest coast of the country have been decimated because they were not built to withstand disasters. The death toll now stands at 15 people with more than 300 injured. Hospitals in Port-de-Paix suffer from damage and a lack of supplies to treat patients. Thousands of Haitians are now living in tents. Rescue agencies are trying to provide support to the victims, while President Jovenel Moïse has also promised to offer assistance. President Nicolas Maduro has participated in the 4th Congress of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, which was held together with the 3rd Congress of the PSUV Youth. President Maduro spoke about the economic recovery process and the defeat against the coup attempts which the country has been fighting. He also spoke about the importance of the work of young people in Venezuela in contributing to the political and social stability of the country.
The PSUV anthem ended the Congress of the party where Chavismo was born. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro headed up the event. He says the international right wing is looking for new ways to destabilize Venezuela.
There is a global campaign against Venezuela. It is unbelievable to see. Politicians from the whole world making Venezuela their main target. We should be doing good when we have become the target of fascism at this moment in history.
Maduro regretted what he considers indifference from some political sectors regarding the attack he suffered last August.
I have proven the plans to kill me, and still the right wing is just a witness. A live global TV spectator.
The Venezuelan president talked about the current political scenario in some countries where fascist behavior is returning.
We're able to see nowadays the comeback of fascist figures, xenophobia in the Latin American political framework. They put peace and stability at risk in the whole continent. I have no doubt these fascist countries will try to damage the Bolivarian revolution. I have no doubt either about how they can also damage our people in Latin America.
Maduro says that in Venezuela, it's the people who have the power, the very same people who defend the revolution and the country's democracy, despite the economic war Venezuela is suffering.
Venezuela's interior minister has ordered an investigation into the death of an opposition councillor. On Twitter, Nestor Rafarol said that Fernando Alban had been arrested last week in connection with the attempted assassination of President Nicolas Maduro. According to initial reports, Alban was about to be taken to court for an initial hearing when he asked for permission to go to the bathroom. He then threw himself from a window. Rafarol charged the public prosecutor and the investigative police with carrying out a thorough investigation into his death. The former chief executive of Cambridge Analytica reportedly used a racial slur to refer to Barbados' Prime Minister and their Minister of Information. The UK Guardian is reporting that it has seen emails from Alexander Nix when he was the head of Cambridge Analytica, where he refers to the two women using the N-word. It was in reference to an apparent pitch by his company to aid Ms. Motley's 2018 election campaign. A colleague sent Nix an email saying that he believed neither Motley nor Lucille Moore wanted to interact with him. Nix then used the slur in his response to that message.
Freely give my counsel and advice.
We'll take a short break now. More news in a few.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Presidential candidate Fernando Haddad has visited the former president Lula da Silva in prison to discuss how to approach the second round of Brazil's presidential election. The Workers' Party candidate says he's optimistic he will be able to beat the far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro, despite the 17-point differences in the first round. The PT candidate says that during these 3 weeks, the two candidates' projects for Brazil will be properly discussed.
We will have a very important opportunity to compare these two proposals so that the voter has an opportunity that, in my opinion, they did not have in the first round. So the opportunity is very important for us.
Colombia has registered a 14% increase in children dying of starvation. A report by the Ombudsman's office has rung the alarm, but organizations say the government is ignoring them. 162 children under the age of 5 died of starvation or related causes between January and September of this year, 21 more compared to the previous year. Organizations are urging the government to take measures to address this. And another social leader has been killed in Colombia. Jaime Rivera was a human rights campaigner and a member of the coca substitution program in the department of Cauca. He and his 2 sons were killed on Saturday. Rivera's death takes the number of community leaders murdered in Colombia to 474 since 2016, and 27 leaders have been killed since President Ivan Duque came into office 2 months ago. Indignation Week has begun in Colombia. Organizations from all sectors will come together to demonstrate and march in rejection of the neoliberal policies of President Ivan Duque.
Leaders of social organizations from all over the country joined Indignation Week in Colombia to reject the breaches of the peace agreement implementation by the national government, the systematic murder of social leaders, and constant violations of human rights.
There has been a lot of unfulfilled agreements on behalf of the government. Lots of student organizations, indigenous people, Afro-Campesino communities have made many demonstrations demanding the right for life, for respect on the guarantee of rights, and against the murders that have been happening.
To this call, students of universities and public institutions from Colombia have joined together. They are declaring a permanent assembly to reject the announcement of the government of Ivan Duque to decrease the budget on education, increase taxes, and make reforms to system participation.
We are going to mobilize with deans, parliamentary teachers, our families, to defend educational from all over Colombia. We are facing a serious crisis that needs everyone to get out on the street to tell the government that this generation is not going to let education be privatized.
Campesino sectors, indigenous, Afro, student communities, human rights defenders will all reject through this mobilization the criminalization of social protest. They also decry the possible intervention in Venezuela.
We're worried about the progress of the right in the continent, the issue of intervention towards Venezuela, towards social popular movements in Latin America, and the understanding of the role that Colombia has been playing in this intervention framework with the United States.
On October 10th and 12th, thousands of Colombians will go out onto the streets of the main cities of the country to defend peace, sovereignty, right to education, health, and life.
It was on this day in 1967 that one of Latin America's most charismatic revolutionary leaders, Ernesto Che Guevara, was murdered. Bolivian President Evo Morales has paid tribute to him, saying that the world has lost an indefatigable fighter and liberator of the Latin American people. He wrote, "Our homage to Che Guevara, who will remain immortal." Bolivia is expanding its basic industries with a potassium chloride plant on the Uni salt flats. Our correspondent has the details.
The Bolivian government has put into operation a huge potassium chloride production plant. Located on the Uyuni salt flat, it was built with public resources. Quechua communities celebrated the creation of this plant with the capacity to produce 350,000 tons of this fertilizer a year.
It is a big thing for us and for everyone living here. This plant will benefit all the Bolivian people.
It's an admirable project that will benefit all Bolivians, especially those who live in this region, in Uyuni.
The plant was built with mainly local labor. It uses German, French, and Chinese technology.
We can control the whole process from this command center. There are 210 people working here. The majority, 78%, come from the Uyuni region and nearby towns.
It's a very important feat of engineering because it's built on what was a lake and has now turned into the biggest salt flats in the world.
We've had to excavate more than 1.5 meters of the salt flat to make a very strong and stable structure. It's a huge job that meant a huge budget. It would have been easier to do it on solid ground, but the operational cost to move thousands of tons of raw material would have certainly been greater.
The potassium chloride production plant is part of the public industrialization program. It costs $188 million, financed with Bolivia's own resources, obtained from the nationalization of oil and gas.
The resources used for this infrastructure come from the Bolivian Central Bank, from our income, from our own money. Now we have contracted foreign companies to carry out the work, not to be our bosses, but to be our employees.
50 square kilometers of brine pools feed the plant. It's the 9th biggest in the world and the 3rd biggest on this continent. It will pay for the construction cost in 5 years. Potassium chloride regenerates the soil and increases food production.
112 unidentified and unclaimed bodies have been buried in Mexico's Ciudad Juarez. The remains belong to 81 men, 4 women, and 27 fetuses. They had been in the local forensic medical service since 2017. Authorities believe the bodies have not been claimed for several reasons: a lack of money to bury them, fear after a murder, or, in the case of the fetuses, they are as a result of clandestine abortions. Mexico's President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador has promised small farmers that he will help them to reactivate the produce market.
Juan Castillo headed to Mexico City to represent small farmers producers like him. He wants Andrés Manuel López Obrador to learn about the problems farmers face from the states of Chiapas and Oaxaca.
The seed time should take place in 2019 so we can follow the cycles for cacao, coffee, cinnamon, and achiote, and we don't have to wait another 6 years to start the harvest.
Aimed at recovering over 1 million hectares that are not currently productive, the program, Growing Life by the upcoming government, will try to solve the most urgent problems for farmers, such as soil erosion.
It's necessary to grow trees, fruit trees, to combine corn with these trees so they can help the soil and improve our land.
The purpose is also to have a positive impact on Mexico's economy. The program will have the support of experts, technicians, and will help young people with scholarships.
It should be highlighted that over 400,000 jobs will be created the next year, stable jobs.
The project, aimed at small farmers owning up to 5 hectares in the poorest regions of the country, will respect traditional way of farming.
We have to honor our traditions, and we have a debt to our farmers. We need to get ready to work, and we need to respect the traditional way of farming in combination with the new technologies.
It is estimated that around 1 million jobs in the agriculture sector have been lost during the last 25 years due to the lack of support and the struggles of the market.
We'll take a short break now, and we'll have more news after this.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
The International Monetary Fund is predicting global economic growth at 3.7% for 2018 and 2019. The forecast is a decrease of 0.2% compared with its earlier prediction. The IMF said that US-China trade war is taking its toll on the world economy and that emerging markets are struggling with tighter liquidity and capital overflows. The announcement led to a fall in the stock index futures in the US, Europe and Asia.
We have always said at the IMF that trade tariffs are not helpful globally and are likely to have negative consequences on growth. So we maintain that view, and we very much hope that reason will prevail and that all players will come to the table and will agree to improve the rules by which trade happens.
Turkey has said it's going to search the Saudi consulate in relation to the alleged murder of the missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi, a strong critic of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, was last seen outside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Turkish authorities have said they believe he was murdered inside the consulate. They also said that they believe his body was driven out in a black van they have been looking for. The international community has condemned the journalist's disappearance and have called for a full investigation.
On this, let me subscribe 100% what Secretary Pompeo said just a few hours ago. We are fully aligned with the US position on this. We expect a thorough investigation and full transparency from the Saudi authorities on what has happened.
Iraqi Prime Minister-designate Adel Abdel Mahdi has launched a website for candidates to apply online for ministerial positions to assist his attempts to form a government. The website lets both men and women apply until Thursday afternoon by registering their personal data, political orientation, party membership, and which ministry they wish to head. Prime Minister-designate Adel Abdel Mahdi, who was appointed on October 2nd, has until November 1st to form his government. Bulgarian authorities have detained a person in connection with the murder of the journalist Victoria Marinova, who was found raped and murdered in a park in the city of Raus. Local media reports that the suspect is a Romanian citizen with a Moldovan passport. Marina was a TV anchor reporting on the alleged fraud involving EU funds linked to businessmen and politicians at the time of her murder. She was the third journalist to be murdered in the European Union this year. And in Cameroon, opposition candidate Maurice Kamto is declaring victory in the presidential polls despite a government warning not to announce unofficial results. Kamto, in making the declaration, says he believes he achieved his goal in Sunday's vote. At a media conference, he also called on the president, Paul Biya, to hand over power peacefully. Biya, who is 85, has ruled Cameroon for nearly 4 decades. And now let's have a look at some of the stories making headlines around the world.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has invited Pope Francis to visit Pyeongchang in a bid to push for peace, according to South Korean officials. A similar invitation for Pope John Paul II after an inter-Korean summit in 2000 never resulted in a visit. The Vatican and North Korea don't have diplomatic ties, as the latter is officially atheist. 2 days ahead of the deadline announced by the Indonesian government to cease search and rescue operations, at least 9 excavators have been digging in Sulawesi. The area was devastated by a strong earthquake and a falling tsunami in late September. The official death toll has risen to 2010, with most fatalities happening in the city of Palu due to the tsunami.
Up until today, at 1 p.m., we recorded 2,010 deaths from the earthquake and tsunami in central Sulawesi. 1,601 people died in Palu City. 171 people died in Donggala. 222 people died in Sigi. 15 people died in Parigi Montong. And in Pansankayu, which is in West Sulawesi, only 1 people died. Palu has the highest number of victims, mostly because of the tsunami.
An explosion has hit a munitions depot in the Chernihiv region in northern Ukraine, prompting officials to evacuate around 12,000 people. State security said there were about 2 to 3 explosions and they are investigating possible sabotage angle, but the cause of the explosion is not yet known. No casualties have been reported so far.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telus4tv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telus Your English, I'm Sony Gray. Thank you for watching.